You're lying on a cave floor 5,000 years ago. Your arm is gone below the elbow, torn away by an injury. Nobody survives. Half your face is caved in. One eye doesn't work anymore. You cannot hunt. You cannot climb. You cannot hear a predator sneaking up behind you. And somehow, you live for another decade. So how did ancient humans deal with the diseases, injuries, and infections that should have killed them in a world with no hospitals, no antibiotics, no anesthesia? The honest answer isn't what most people expect. And it starts with a skeleton that broke every assumption anthropologists had about the Stone Age. Right now, if you get sick, you take something from a pharmacy shelf. If you break a bone, a stranger in scrubs sets it under bright lights and asks about your pain on a scale of 1 to 10. Getting seriously ill is inconvenient. For most of human history, it was a death sentence with a very short countdown, unless someone decided you were worth keeping alive. That decision, it turns out, left fingerprints in the fossil record. In 1957, archaeologist Ralph Selecki was excavating Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan when his team uncovered the remains of an adult Neanderthal male, now known as Shanidar I. The skeleton told a brutal story. He'd taken a crushing blow to the head at a young age, damaging the left eye and the brain area, controlling the right side of his body. His right arm was withered, his leg damaged, and he was likely blind in one eye. Later analysis found something worse: bony growths in his ear canals that would have caused serious hearing loss. A blind, deaf, one-armed hunter-gatherer in an era when the sound of a cave lion's breath was the only warning you'd get. He shouldn't have lasted a season. Ancient Origins +3, he lived to somewhere between 35 and 45 years old, practically elderly by Paleolithic standards. Human Origins show what actually kept him alive. Everyone assumes Neanderthals were pure brute survival, kill or be killed, weakest left behind. The truth is the opposite, and the evidence is written directly into his bones. Every one of his injuries shows clear signs of healing, which means none of them killed him outright. Someone fed him when he couldn't hunt. Someone walked slowly when he limped. Someone talked directly into his good ear. As researcher Eric Trinkhaus put it, Shanidar I's disabilities would have made him easy prey for the carnivores in his environment, meaning he was dependent on other members of his social group just to survive. This wasn't an accident of preservation. This was decades of deliberate care, from creatures we used to picture as knuckle-dragging brutes. Human Origins Gizmodo, but injury wasn't the only killer. Disease was quieter, and it hid in places nobody thought to look: inside a mouth. At the El Sidrón cave site in northern Spain, researcher Karen Hardy and her team analyzed hardened dental plaque scraped from Neanderthal teeth roughly 50,000 years old. The individuals dated to between 47,300 and 50,600 years ago, and buried in the calculus on one man's teeth were traces of yarrow and chamomile, two plants that are bitter, low in nutrition, and useless as food. Later genetic work went further. That same individual showed signs of a dental abscess and a stomach infection, and appeared to be self-medicating with poplar, a natural painkiller, and a mold that produces natural antibiotics. ResearchGate +3 here's where it gets strange. This wasn't guesswork or coincidence. These Neanderthals carried the gene for tasting bitterness, the same gene that makes humans today recoil from unripe fruit or spoiled food. That gene exists to stop you from eating poison. And yet, this individual sought the bitter plant out anyway, again and again, while actively sick. A creature we once drew as a grunting caveman was identifying symptoms, remembering which plant dulled the pain, and choosing to eat something his own instincts told him to avoid. That's not survival by luck, that's medicine. ResearchGate, so if disease could sometimes be managed with plants, what happened when the problem was inside the skull itself? This is where the story turns genuinely unbelievable. Skull surgery, cutting or scraping a hole directly into living bone. Sounds like something that should have a near zero survival rate, with stone tools and no anesthesia. Anthropologist John Verano of Tulane University studied more than 800 trepanned skulls, mostly from ancient Peru, and the results upend the primitive equals doomed assumption completely. Success rates reached up to 80% during the Inca era, compared to just 50% survival for the same procedure performed by Civil War doctors 400 years later, with metal tools and formal training. National Geographic Science read that again. Stone tool surgeons, 4 centuries before antibiotics existed, were outperforming trained battlefield physicians. It wasn't instant mastery, either. Between 400 and 200 BCE, survival sat around just 40%. Based on analysis of 59 skulls from that period. Early, brutal trial and error on real living people. But healed trepanation lesions, some individuals showing multiple healed surgeries on the same skull, appear across sites worldwide, meaning people didn't just survive the operation. They survived it, healed, and went back under the knife again later, and lived through that too. Spoken past science direct, so the real question isn't whether ancient humans knew how to treat illness and injury. It's why we ever assumed they didn't. The obvious answer is that ancient medicine was primitive superstition, and modern medicine saved us from it. But the deeper answer sitting in the bones is almost the reverse. The tools were primitive, but the instinct underneath them. Identify the problem, apply a remedy, care for the body that can't care for itself, is not a modern invention at all. It's older than written language, older than agriculture, maybe older than our own species. The stone blade changed. The willingness to use it on someone who couldn't repay you didn't. You're lying on that cave floor again, one arm gone, one eye dark, unable to hear the world closing in around you. But this time you know what happens next. Someone stays. Someone feeds you. Someone hands you a bitter plant that tastes like poison and turns out to be the opposite. The real medicine was never the flint blade or the bitter root. It was the decision, made over and over across 50,000 years, that a sick and broken person was still worth keeping alive.